Hello everyone! Today I'm going to be doing a deck profile on my Cardfight Vanguard Dragonic Overlord The X deck. After 1 year of my Overlord deck with the Great and the N, I finally got this deck to be updated with Silver Dust Blaze or Silver Petal Dragonflame, depending on how you like to name it. So now this deck focuses on the Cross and having the N. So let's just begin. So before we start off showing with the deck, what force number I would recommend for this deck? I recommend force 2. Mainly because it will give you a triple attack with 2 crits each. And that could be devastating, forcing your opponent to guard. And you do have cards to give power to your Vanguard already, so that will force even more cards to guard. So it might be more valuable than the power. But if you're already near the end game, I would go force 1. But preferably force 2. So let's begin with the main event I'm going to start off with both grade 3s of the Cross and the N at the same time. So the Cross, what it does is you can Soul Blast 1 once per turn. Soul Blast 1, choose one card with Overlord's name that it's not itself, and it gains its ability. And its name as well. So what basically it does is you choose an Overlord, gains its ability and its name. So you mainly want to choose the N because that's the best target, and also technically it is just the N support because the second ability is that when both players are at grade 3, your drive checks cannot be 0, which the N, which is abilities, will turn your drive check to 0 during its last attack because the N's ability can do 3 attacks in 1 turn, and the Cross's third ability makes it where your cards from hand is always regarded as 0. So basically, your DN has a restriction where, first of all, after your DN's ability is after when it attacks, it has one effect split into 2 sections. So the first section is after when it attacks, you have 3 cards or less in your hand. No, 4 cards or less. My bad. You can counterblast Soul Blast to restand it with a drive -1. So that's where this third effect comes in. And then the second section for the end is that Overlording your Soul, you can discard 3 cards from your hand to restand it with an extra plus 10k. And also the first effect comes in at the same time, because you gain its effect and you solve the soul restriction right there. Just like that. Because you're putting this in soul, so you have this Overlord in your soul, and because you're gaining its ability, you will have the ability as well. And that 3 cards or less of restriction is no longer there because your hand is regarded as 0 regardless. So originally, the N was made where you discard 3 to lower your cards in your hand, so then you could play the first section. But now with this, it doesn't even matter. And because both effects have a drive -1 on the N, you're gonna end up with drive -0, drive 0. So that's where the other effect comes in, where your drive checks can never be 0. So you will have at least 1 drive check in each attack. So it's basically twin drive, single drive, and single drive. So that's basically how it is. So this is basically a first ride DN. The only problem is that it heavily relies on having your DN on your deck. So you will need to play cards that will put your DNs back in your deck if you can't get any. And so both need to be 4 copies because you have to ride this right away, and you don't want to ride the N, and you want to have as many of the ends as possible in your deck. So that's just my grade 3 lineup. Very basic like everyone else. For the grade 2s, I run the Ignite Dragon. So it's for a skill, win place, on Vanguard Rearguard, look at top 7 cards, and search for your Cross. That's basically it. That's basically its first skill, but this is one way to search it out. And then second effect is, each time your Vanguard attacks while you have 4 or less cards in your hand, but the Cross nullifies that instantly, gets plus 5k. So because you're doing a triple attack with the Cross with the end skill, you're going to get 15k after all the attacks. So this is just a big beater. And there is a promo that gains 5k and 1 crit, but it requires you to discard 1 card to do that. So in many cases, you don't really want to do that too many times. And then for another new card, I play Torrid Cannon Dragon. 4 copies. So this is quite essential as well, because once per turn on Vanguard Rearguard, you can counterblast 1. and return one normal unit, normally your DN, to the bottom of your deck, and then retire one of your opponent's rear cards that are grade 2 or less. And then if your hand is 4 or less, draw a card, which your cross will just nullify that cost. Will nullify the condition. So this is here for some retire options and also to help you return your DNs. And then for just some old basic cards, I run Berserk Dragon. I choose Berserk Dragon because basic retire also works for early game purposes compared to like, you can run Burnout instead. But the problem with Burnout is the same reason for Petort Cannon, where you need a card like a normal unit in your drop zone, but Burnout requires a grade 2 or higher. So that's a problem with Burnout where Berserk Dragon doesn't have. Because Berserk Dragon, sometimes you want early game purposes, so that's why I use Berserk Dragon. You can go for Burnout as well. And I also run the Wyvern Strike Decot. This basically lets you counterblast 1 put to Soul, just to give your DN the ability to force your opponent to use at least 2 cards to guard at the same time. So, has its uses, but it's up to you if you want to play it. You don't have to play it actually. You could run Burnout instead. But I do choose to play it because it does have its uses. Especially for the grade 1, our main grade 1, that you really want to play is Heat Shot Dragon. You can run 4, but I run 3 because first off, it has a Vanguard skill where you can, when players discard a card, draw a card. That's up to you if you want to play it. But the second effect where it's important, but you don't want too many of, is at the end of the battle that this card boosts your Vanguard. If that Vanguard stands, you can restand this unit. So basically, your cross gaining the end skill will stand, this card stands, and it will do that 2 times, so it's a triple boosted attack. But this is only good behind your Vanguard, which is why I don't want to be having too many copies of this, but you do want to see it as soon as possible. So once you get like your one copy that you need behind your Vanguard, you don't really have any more use for it, which is why I'm not running 4. But you do want to see this as soon as possible, so I balanced it to 3. And then to continue off your grade 1, you run your Aramo for countercharging purposes. I run 2 copies of the grade 3 Searcher because I'm not spending $15 to $20 for each copy just to one day to replace 2 copies for another card. So instead, I have the 2 Sabo Dragon New as a little substitute because I still have it. So you can run 4 copies if you really want to pay like $15 to $20 for each copy. But I'm not going to do that if one day I'm going to just replace 2 copies just for another card. So I have Sabo Dragon New for that instead. And then for my last grade 1, I run Calamity Tower Wyvern. What it does is you can act Soul Blast 1 to retire this unit and give one of your Vanguard 15k power. So because you're doing triple attack the cross with the end skill, that will be 28k for each attack, so it will be very big. And this is technically like a alternative to Decot if you can't really use Decot, or if you don't have Heat Shot for your big three kind of big attacks, you can use this as well. And then for trigger lineup, 8 crits, run whatever you want. I just run my shiny crits, and then I run the 4 draw PGs, and then the 4 heals. And then of course my starter is Conroad. Run whatever starter you like. So that's it for the deck profile. It's pretty simple. The concept is just restand the ends, and it's kind of similar to many other people how they built their deck. It's mostly based on the new cards anyway. So hope you guys enjoyed the video, and see you guys next time.